The Towson 2 Community and Charity Series here at WNST, brought to you by Cole Roofing. We welcome in Lisa Wiederlight. She is the Executive Director for SafeMinds and Autism. And I tell you, Lisa, first things first, welcome in. We're going to promote your event for Fashion Rocks coming up next Friday night, the 28th. AC/DC's involved, so I love me some AC/DC cover bands. I love a charity event, and I dress up nice. But autism is everywhere, isn't it? I can't wait to hear your story because I know you're doing great work out in the space. But I can't begin to name all the names. I wouldn't want to of my friends that have an association with autism. So I'm happy to promote what you're doing out there. And I know anytime rock and roll is involved, I want to be there too.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, autism is 1 in 50 8-year-olds right now in the state of Maryland, and nationally it's 1 in 59 8-year-olds, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
That's every grade in my elementary school. My elementary school, we had about 50 kids, 225 classes in first grade, second grade. So that would mean one in every sort of class in every classroom, kind of, sort of. Certainly on every block, right, where there are children, this is going on. And so it is prevalent, and I know you're doing a lot in the research space. So before we get to the event, and we are going to tell everybody about the Valley Mansion on the 28th, you can learn more at safeminds.org. Give me your story and how this comes to you, because more and more people have gotten involved in autism because, quite frankly, it's touched them.
Yeah, sure. I have an 18-year-old son with autism and epilepsy. His epilepsy started when he was 14. A lot of our kids develop epilepsy during puberty or in early birth. It's one of those two. There's a very high prevalence of epilepsy and autism co-occurring. And he was diagnosed at Kennedy Krieger in 2003. So it's been a while since my son has been diagnosed, and it's been a long journey. But, we've learned a lot along the way, and I'm honored, actually, to lead SafeMinds, because we are not only trying to find out the causes of the development of autism in a large percentage of our kids, but also some treatments for those co-occurring conditions, like I mentioned. Up to 35% of kids with autism have epilepsy, and I guess up to 75% have gastrointestinal issues, and concerningly, about 40% are nonverbal. So what if you're one of those 40% who are nonverbal, who also have GI issues and can't tell your parents you're in pain, right? So we're trying to figure out some treatments and some effective educational interventions. Right now, there's no best practices in education. About 49% of our kids wander, like people with Alzheimer's wander. And if you're nonverbal and you wander, or you have epilepsy and you wander and you don't take your medicine, it's a really dangerous situation.
Well, I think people have become more maybe inclined or aware when someone's on the spectrum that you notice kind of sort of early on, or at least my radar is up for it, whereas 25, I turned 50 next month, so when I was 25, I didn't know what it was other than watching Rain Man, right? And seeing that and saying, maybe I know someone sort of like that, but there's all sorts of grades along the spectrum. And for you to say we've learned a lot since 2003, I don't know that I would dispute that or not dispute that. You're in the space, but certainly we haven't learned enough, right? Like, my wife's a 2-time leukemia survivor, and I know we've learned a lot about that because I can touch her and feel her and, touch and feel other survivors in various cancer spaces. So I think that becomes more measurable than where your 18-year-old is versus where he might have been in a stagnant world 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. And certainly 40 or 50 years ago wouldn't have been diagnosed. It would have been something in the closet that nobody talks about, right?
Well, you're right on in that. Maybe I misspoke. We learned about Josh's autism, my son, personally, but unfortunately, nobody really knows much more than they did when my son was diagnosed about autism when he was, in 2003, because the federal government, unfortunately, has really been an epic failure when it comes to
a lot of things, by the way. I'll just put that in there, but,
I'll put that in there, too, but especially as it pertains to autism, considering how many people are affected, how dangerous it is. People with autism have about 80% unemployment when they become adults, and how it affects the U.S. economy. So you would think, just for the economy's sake alone, my son's going to be collecting Social Security the same time as the baby boomers. His cohort was 1 in 88. 8-year-olds has autism, so now it's increased to 1 in 59 nationally, but 1 in every 88 18-year-olds can collect Social Security for the most part, in addition to the baby boomers. So just think about that economic impact, to say nothing of the human part of it as well. So, the federal government really hasn't done anything to identify a cause. They spent over $1 billion in the past 20 years, but there's no accountability. There's no effectiveness. The stakeholders, like myself and many others, feel like what the federal government's done doesn't even affect our daily lives, which is really a shame.
Lisa Wiederlight is here. She's executive director of SafeMinds. They're putting on a little fashion event next Friday night on the 28th at the Valley Mansion in Hunt Valley. Fashion Rocks Autism is the name of the event. I know our pals over at the Bay are also involved in this. I've heard Stash talking about this, who's also been affected. So hats off to Stash, who I've had a 3-decade bromance with as well. SafeMinds.org is the way to find that, and Fashion Rocks Autism, and an AC/DC cover band. So, I'm all about the rock and roll. And I know Chris Schaefer's also involved, and I just donated a bunch of my shirts to Chris's efforts to clothe working folks out in the community as well. So, hey, look, we're all pitching in here. We're doing a cool thing. I want to ask you about the vaccination thing because it's such a hot spot, and I've heard the Jenny McCarthy side of this and the government side and doctor side and all that. And Lord knows if I had a child with autism that I would be looking for answers one way or another. And I know it's a hot button, and the people that are purveying fake news or yelling fake news are the people that are making up the fake news in our government at this point. So you don't know who to believe or where to go. I'm always on the science side. I'm always on the doctor side. I'm always a put the cook in the kitchen. And I'm from Missouri. I'm a show me kind of guy. And so I don't know where all this is, and I'm very confused about it. I'm sure if my son had a son with autism, I'd still be confused about it, like we were confused about leukemia, searching for answers. So where does SafeMinds go on this? And I've Googled all sorts of things in regard to your organization, and there's a lot of mudslinging in the space as well, isn't there?
The question is, where is the science for all of this? And there's a certain percentage of people in the autism community who believe that vaccines cause autism and that, the science is not done and science is always evolving. There are studies on both sides that show it does and studies that show that it doesn't. We really focus right now on, getting the government to really find what's causing it. They're not saying it's not an epidemic increase. Well, I don't know what is or is not when you look at 1 in 150 20 years ago to 1 in 59 now. We're looking for treatments because our kids are sick. Again, I mentioned GI issues. I mentioned seizures, wandering. Kids with autism, and actually adults with autism, are 9 times more likely to ideate suicide than their typical peers. So we're really concerned about the health of people with autism so they can become as independent as possible. And that's what we're focusing on right now and getting some accountability with the government.
And you're also rocking out with some music from AC/DC and a Fashion Rocks. I got some nice stuff in my closet, but tell me about Fashion Rocks and the whole concept to do this for autism and for your group at SafeMinds.
Sure. We are really excited about this event. It's our 4th year of the event. We've got 6 clothiers, actually 7, because we have one person who comes up from Florida every year. She's North American Miss Florida 2018. Her name is Rachel Barcelona. She's an international autism advocate, as well as a person with autism who is going to college now in Florida. And so we have a special clothier, Ella Prisker Couture, who does her designs every year. You mentioned Christopher Schaefer. We've got a number of other clothiers, Sanova for men. We've got the QG as well, and we've got Tuxedo House. Andrew Hoxie from the Baltimore Blast is going to be on the runway. We have about 50 models, actually, and we really focus on having a good time. We've got a 1-hour reception with an open bar, as well as tons of food, more food than you can ever imagine, really. And then our fashion show and rock concert kicks off with High Voltage, the AC/DC tribute band you mentioned. They're amazing. And then we have a trunk show, and we also have a live and silent auction. And this year we have a guitar signed by Paul McCartney.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be off the hook. So it's a great event. And right now tickets are 20% off this week. So if anyone wants to get a good deal, tickets are usually $125, and this week they're going for $100.
Nice. SafeMinds.org is where to find this. Lisa Wiederlight is joining us here from that organization and Fashion Rocks. I tell you what, when you see AC/DC, you see Angus Young. He was always pretty well dressed. So, I do like that there's at least a theme going on with the rock and roll and all that stuff. For the future and for what is being done and what organizations like yours would like to see done, I guess advocacy is one thing, solving it, trying to figure out how to prevent prevent this in the future. And then there's I have an 18-year-old and jobs in the real world. A friend of mine has a child that's playing hockey, right? So, and I don't think that would have been happening 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. So for you, in the advocacy space and finding a parent that has a child, what things are available in 2018 that weren't in 2003 because of groups like yours and advocates and the people at Kennedy Krieger and so many things locally that have happened?
So what are you asking me what I want to see in the future? Or
sure.
So for the future, really, we're really looking for better opportunities for people with autism and their families. The support really still isn't there for our families, and that's something that SafeMinds is very interested in as well. Autism can be very isolating, and families need support. And, back in 2003, the internet, I was still relatively young, and now, there's a lot of groups online, and that's really important for our families. But, SafeMinds, again, you asked, what we're focused on, and we're focused on really advocating for more government accountability. It would be nice to know what causes autism and see if we can prevent it in any way. But it would be, at least the development of mild to severe autism. But for those people who can get out and who can work and who are healthy, we need to find them jobs that are appropriate. Everybody deserves to be productive, and everybody wants to be productive. So we want our government to focus on better housing opportunities for our kids, and acceptance is important for people. Everybody wants to be part of something so they're not isolated. And we really need the government to really step up and take this crisis seriously instead of as a research project. The research they do, for the most part, isn't translated to the real world. And it's time to get some policies, procedures, and programs out there that can help people.
I've enjoyed our chat, Lisa. I appreciate you making some time and being such an advocate for a cause near and dear to your heart. And I like the fact that 27 years into this, our friends at Cole Roofing and other sponsors bring people like you on and spotlight your organization. Good luck next Friday night. I know you're indoor there, and the AC/DC cover band High Voltage will be rocking it out, and everybody be well-dressed and all that good stuff. You can get your tickets at safeminds.org, and make sure you click on that Fashion Rocks tab there and get you 20% off, $100. Friday night, the 28th, it's at the Valley Mansion, right under our towers in beautiful Hunt Valley. Thanks for coming on, Lisa. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Have a great day.
Keep up the great work. Lisa Wiederlight joining us here from SafeMinds. You can find all of our work out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world by downloading the TuneIn radio app. If you are involved in a charity or community service, event, a 5K, a fashion party, a good cause, throw me a note, nasty@WNST.net. I'd love to feature you as part of what we're doing in conjunction with our pals at Cole Roofing. They've been doing roofs for 99 years. Billy Cole joins us here every week to talk some rock and roll, some sports, some music, some life, some encouragement, some Orioles, some Ravens. We do it every week. But all of our community and charity events brought to you by Cole Roofing and Pfister Energy. Get out to coleroofing.com and learn about all the cool stuff that they do above your head in a great living space to make your roof much more productive and viable moving forward. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.